Horseman is... Good to see Cam out in this race. They point towards the lighting entry for the final time. It's Spud Nesbitt who's effectively in pole position on second on the grid. Red lights come on, lights out, then and away we go for the pit bike open race. Brilliant start then from all involved, and Spud Nesbitt gets the jump down towards turn one ahead of Richard Holmes-Williams. Then in third position, it looks to be Danny Stainer by the looks of things. I'm just trying to see who that... Sorry, Daniel Lee rather, I should say, not Danny Stainer. Daniel Lee in third position. He's made an absolute belter of a getaway as the number 144 up into third position within this race. A cracking start to proceedings for the rider. Everybody making it cleanly through. We've got a rider that's already gone down. Is that Richard Holmes-Williams at a P2? Indeed it is. So Richard Holmes-Williams at the far end of the circuit. He's up and okay. He's back on the motorcycle, but he drops it at the far end into the sweeping left-hander. And unfortunately, it is not turning out to be the best of weekends at all for Daniel Lee, I'm afraid to say. In fact, I apologise, it might not have been Daniel Lee, it was Richard Holmes-Williams, I should say. Daniel Lee, of course, now inherits second place. James Ansell up into P3 as well. And James, considering he's not actually raced in FAB-Racing this year at all, is lapping within a second of the likes of Charlie Nesbitt and Daniel Lee. And Charlie Nesbitt, of course, is the British Moto Star champion of 2016 as well. So he's a rider with a lot of calibre and a lot of skill as well. We rarely see him ever go down the road, do we, with Charlie Nesbitt. That is why he is a British champion, and he's making faces to us as well as he comes across the timing line past the FAB-Racing commentary box. But Daniel Lee in second place. His closest competition is James Ansell with Jack Walters just behind, so a three-way battle potentially for second place in this race. That could prove to be a bit tasty as the race continues onwards. A shortened distance in this one of 12 laps as well by the sounds of things, but Daniel Lee holding on very nicely into P2, and not a person I have to say that I expected to do so well given his qualifying time, but nonetheless I'm pleasantly surprised at Daniel Lee's pace this weekend. And likewise James Ansell as well. He's having a great run so far. Into the final corner, the trio of riders go for second place. Second, third and fourth, Daniel Lee, James Ansell and Jack Walters. And James Ansell is in that really unfortunate position of having to attack and defend at the same time as well. I can imagine he's absolutely knackered there as well as James Ansell. He's not been riding an awful lot. He's been riding, of course, the CRF at Swindon Karting Arena when they have their pit bike night on Mondays. And if you don't know about that, I highly recommend you get yourself onto Swindon Karting Arena's website to find out more information about it, because they are very, very exciting. It's an absolutely brilliant facility, and pit bike evening that everybody goes to on a Monday night. A lot of people from the FAB-Racing paddock head down there. I've heard many, many good things about them. But Charlie Nesbitt leads the way then. Fastest lap last time around from him. Got a rider down in the final corner as well. Is that James Ansell? No, it's not James Ansell. It's actually Craig Walker on the number 127. So Craig Walker bins it down the road at the final corner. He's up and okay, back on his bike, and now back in contention in this race. So good to see there for Craig Walker, but a shame he binned it down the road in the first place. Meanwhile, Richard Holmes-Williams in the final position within this race as well in P6. We were expecting 7 runners at least for this last race in the pit bike open category, but it's not to be for the time being. But Charlie Nesbitt leads by 9 seconds ahead of Daniel Lee in second place. My goodness me, I've never seen that happen before. John Ansell lights up the rear tyre on towards the starting grid. Out of the final corner he went, light up the rear tyre, and ended up skidding down the road all over his backside as well. I'm sure he won't be very pleased about that. But that was an unbelievably uncharacteristic mistake from John Ansell. He's now back out into this race, but he's down into P4, so a surefire podium from the number 120, who's racing on his son Blake Ansell's bike this weekend. Unfortunately chucks it down the road, and he's got a bit of ground to make up against Jack Walters. That, of course, means that Jack Walters now into P3. That becomes a two-way scrap from a three-way scrap as well. So P2 for Daniel Lee, P3 for Jack Walters, and then several seconds down the road, it is going to be James Ansell. And James doing a very more sensible job this time of managing to keep the tyre shiny side up. It was a very lucky to not have a high side there as well. He kept it very well laid down, did James Ansell there. So jolly good job it was for the number 120. Richard Holmes-Williams comes across the timing line as well. The rider, of course, who was sitting as high as P2 in the opening stages of this race, now down into P6. Charlie Nesbitt, though, leading the way. He's doing a great job on the number 86 Swindon Karting Arena bike. Meanwhile, 2 riders battling very closely still. Daniel Lee and Jack Walters for the second podium position, I should say. 0.2 of a second as they came across the timing line last time around. Through turn 3 and up the back straight they go. If you're watching on our visual radio Facebook stream, you'll of course be able to see some of the action that's taking place on the circuit here at Red Lodge Karting today. You'll also see that there's still a few damp patches on the track as well. We had a lot of rain earlier on. It's not particularly been that warm either, so it's not dried up very quickly at all, which is a very big shame, I have to say. But nonetheless, it's proven to give us some very exciting racing over the course of the last 2 days. And we're very grateful for your company. And do feel free to get in contact with us throughout the course of the day if you're listening to our coverage, or whether you're on our Facebook page as well, facebook.com/Motorsport Radio. You can also find us on our website, www.motorsport-radio.com. If you're on Snapchat today, we would love to hear from you, whether you're listening at the circuit or whether you are listening back at home or something along the lines of that. It's just Motorsport Radio, really, is the Snapchat handle that you can add us on. All lowercase, all one word, Motorsport Radio. Add us on there, and you can see some live behind-the-scenes coverage of the 2016 FAB-Racing British Mini Bikes Championship. We'll have more updates, of course, I'm sure, throughout the course of the 2016 season at Mallory Park. We come to a concluder, of course, in just 2 weeks' time, which we're very excited about. But just a couple of laps remaining then for Spud Nesbitt out in the front in the lead of this race. Daniel Lee and Jack Walters come across the timing line, separated by just a couple of tenths of a second. Craig Walker's dropped down to the final position in this race as well, because Richard Holmes-Williams has lit up the rear tyres and got himself back up in contention as well, into 5th position. Across the timing line comes Daniel Lee and Jack Walters. That gap's now increased by 0.3 of a second. James Ansell trying to bridge that gap. 4.3 seconds is the gap between Jack Walters in P3 and James Ansell in P4, but no way through for James Ansell in the last couple of laps of this race, I am sure. Meanwhile, around the final corner then comes Charlie Nesbitt. Number 86 takes another victory in the Pit Bike Open race. A fantastic performance from the number 86. He'll be very pleased with that, and I think with those results he's obtained this weekend, he'll finish on the top step within the Pit Bike Open category here at Cool Fab Racing. Meanwhile, around the final corner comes Daniel Lee, who takes a well-deserved second place in this Pit Bike Open race 3. Jack Walters in P3, rather, I should say. James Ansell in P4. Richard Holmes-Williams finishes in 5th position in that race, and then it's Craig Walker who rounds out proceedings in the Pit Bike Open race in 6th position.